Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the next edition of Mind Your P's and Q's. As always, I am your host, Lucas Heckenberger, the craftiest of bastards in real life and online. And today joining me is my friend, someone who works tirelessly within the communities to support those who might not have as much as some other people, and someone that I really admire, Kumari Ghafoor-Davis. You are the head of the Campaign for Racial and Ethnic Justice in the Lehigh Valley, the director, at Community Action Committee. You do happen to be my future wife's boss. But at the same time, I'm very honored to have you on the show here today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you, Lucas.
It's an absolute pleasure, Kumari. You know, I've known you for a couple years now, and especially considering with COVID, I know that you all as an organization and as a team have been working remotely. So I have gotten to experience some of your work, some of your shenanigans, and I really do enjoy the behind the scenes bond that you have, that you as the director have built within your team. And I think it's incredible because, you know, I actually have a shirt on from, this is, I think, the Color Outside the Lines program.
Yeah, it is the a part of the Generation Next She program, Colors of the Lines initiative. Representation matters because we work with students of color, we work with students who are underrepresented. So that is our T-shirt, and we love that shirt. I'm waiting for mine to get in the mail.
I bought one for everybody in my family.
Yes.
Because, you know, obviously we want to support a good cause. We want to support the good work that you guys are doing in the community. But Kumari, it's time to pay the bills. This is what I got to do. All right. Now I took you a variation. Now you are drinking an Amaretto Sour that I brought for you. And
Yes.
Amaretto goes back to either the 15 or the 1700s in Italy. And I didn't really know a ton about Amaretto, but I decided to do a dive into some history. But the Amaretto Sour belongs to a cocktail family known as the Sours. It's one of the like seven mother types of cocktails that me and my people in my industry kind of take our inspiration from. So I hope you don't mind. I'm going to go with a whiskey sour. And as always, I drink Rittenhouse Rye, which was the base spirit made for your husband's cocktail that I brought him. And but anyway,
forget him.
The Sour family goes back to like the 16 and 1700s when punch houses started opening up in London. And I really didn't know that. And I think it's crazy that there's literally hundreds of years documented of history of how these cocktails are made. But and the one thing that I'm going to do that's a little bit different than yours is I'm going to throw an egg white in mine.
Oh, okay.
And now a lot of the contemporary bar folk like myself, we like to throw the egg white in our sour cocktails. It gives a nice, like, fluffy, velvety, soft, frothy texture. Hang on, I got an egg around here somewhere. I got little Egbert hanging back here with me. But Kumari, you know, I've got this Representation Matters T-shirt on, and you talk about that with some of the people that you work with and try and empower, but like your team as well is comprised of all kinds of different representations. Can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yes, the goal is for us to have a diverse team because as we're working with the students in the community with the Generation Next program, we serve over 300 students in Easton Area High School, Liberty High School, Freedom High School in Bethlehem, and then in Allentown, we are in William Allen. So we want to make sure that we have a representation of all folks who could be a part of these communities. So we definitely make sure that we have representation of persons who are Latinx, Latino, Latina. We also have persons who are white. We have persons who are black. So the goal is to ensure that we are representing our students that we serve. And then, of course, with Colors of the Lines, it's the same thing, where we want to ensure that as we are, working with the community to discuss, I guess you could say, concerns around race, we want to make sure that we also have that representation there because sometimes it's easier for someone who's non-brown white for it to land on them differently when someone non-brown white says it to them opposed to someone who's a person of color.
I mean, I'll be honest with you, Kumari. I feel like I'm going to learn so much from this conversation because I can hear snippets and stuff from one side of the coin with Robin on her meetings and everything. But like, how is it that we're coming to this juncture now? I feel like there's a label for everything, and I don't know that that's a bad thing. I don't know if it's a good thing, but like, I mean, I think it's if you know anything about history, if you do any kind of reading, if you look at things across the board and understand how
Mhm.
laws have been made and who have been directing them, it's pretty clear to see that there are structures in place that are meant to hold people back that don't look a certain way.
Definitely. Definitely.
But how is this like this has been a renaissance, and it's been one of the things. Like, I read a lot of publications both on the left and on the right, and it always seems like people who are not willing to even explore this topic and understand some of these nuances in our way of life and in the foundation of our country and the way that it's grown to where it is now. Like, how are we getting to this point now?
Well, honestly, that's a really great question because when you're looking at it in terms of how I guess you could say during our Obama years, I found that people wanted to talk about race more. A lot of people felt as though America had arrived. Oh my goodness, we finally have a black president or a half black president. So it was kind of like that rhetoric that you would hear all the time. But to be
Mm-hmm.
honest with you, because I've been doing this work in racial and social justice now for over 20 years, and I've been doing concentrated racial equity trainings for the past like maybe 10 or 15, I found that when Obama was in office was when people wanted to talk more about race because they figured we had arrived, right? So as time went on and we realized we didn't arrive, I think there's a comedian named D.L. Hughley that I really enjoy, and he said on a talk show when 45 won, because I refuse to say his name, and he said, well, Obama is where we'd like to be, but Trump is where we are, right? So the reality was, I think that a lot of times people were kind of like, oh, I think we arrived. Oh, maybe we didn't arrive. So now we're kind of like having more and more dialogues around
Mm-hmm.
that. And it got really heated, believe me, especially around the end of last year. Our trainings that we were doing around racial equity and cultural competency, cultural humility became extremely heated. People were very angry. We noticed the anxiety and the angst in the training participants, and it hasn't completely dissipated, but it was extremely heated toward the end of the year, as you can imagine. Like we
Uh,
literally did a training on election day. You can imagine how catastrophic that was.
well, hey, Kamari, listen, I will say this. Something I noticed is that Joe Biden has never been in the executive branch without a person of color in terms of representation. So I
Mhm.
think, if nothing else, we can raise a glass and cheers to that. So
Yes, we can.
your Amaretto Sour, my whiskey sour. Mm.
Yes, and my Mom United glass for, for mothers of black boys.
Ah, God, you know what? Honestly, a sour cocktail is so underrated. People ignore them. You
It's
know why?
delicious.
You know why? Because we have bastardized the way that we make food and prepare things in this country over the last 50 or 60 years. And one of the themes of my show, Kamari, is that I blame Stofers for all of the food problems in the United States of America because those bastards decided to just start canning, preserving, and freezing everything, adding a shit ton of sodium, and boom. People think MSG is the boogeyman when it comes to like food processing things that aren't good for us. It's salt. It's all like
Oh
it's
yeah, oh
salt
yeah,
and it's added
definitely.
preservatives. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
think Dave Chappelle has a comedy special where he talks about his regular old salt that's killing people. Exactly. Yeah,
and
but Stouffer's history is actually pretty interesting too in terms of how they started packaging their food because they had an abundance of turkeys that were left over from Thanksgiving that didn't get picked up, and then they had to start boxing them, and that's kind of like how they started their company.
when did the tuna fish come along? I want to know how we ruined such a beautiful piece of fish that we catch from the sea. I like to get the rare tuna. My son likes like the albacore
Hmm.
processed
Hmm.
tuna. I can't bring myself to eat it. It
Hmm.
just blows my mind. But getting back on point, like the whiskey sour, people think of a whiskey sour or an amaretto sour, and they think you're going to get some electric looking pre-batch sour mix, but we use fresh ingredients here.
It's
And
very tasty.
you know this is a cocktail that we shake because it's got citrus in it, and it's a very simple cocktail. This is a 3 ingredient. This is something everybody should be able to make at home, and every sour is pretty much a 3 ingredient wonderful cocktail when you use fresh ingredients. But let's get back on track.
Your whiskey sour looks good.
Thank you very much. That's that egg white, come on. I mean, I've been bartending for close to 15 years, and I have gotten a lot of my stuff as freebies and giveaways. And I have this lovely bar cart and stuff where I, hang my glassware and all this stuff. And I like to find stuff at like estate sales or something like that, so that I can get that nice, elegant looking 20s, 30s, 40s vintage style looking cocktail glass instead of, I don't know, whatever they make now. So everything seems to be copper, and I don't like to work with copper very much. So anyway, Kumari, you had mentioned that you have been doing these kinds of trainings around race, around would it be safe to say critical race theory?
Critical race theory around racial equity, cultural humility. Yeah, for about maybe 10 or 15 years. Yeah,
Okay.
like about 13 and a half.
And how did you, I mean, how did you get started in that?
Mhm. I'm a social worker by profession. So I've been teaching higher ed now since 2001. And I've always taught in the sociology and social work departments. And while I was teaching in those departments, I found that students always had a lot of questions around race. They always had questions around our history, because that's just a part of sociology. And because sociology is the study of groups, a lot of times students would challenge the information that were in the books. So as time went on, and I found that there of course there's a lot of historical lies. They don't tell the truth. I mean, that's why it's called
Agreed.
his story. So and then as time went on, I realized that there was more information needed to be told that was true and real. So I started doing trainings in schools, and then when Obama went in office, it kind of just blew up, and I ended up doing more and more work in schools around race and race equity and cultural humility.
So what's a good way to go about talking to somebody who says that Obama is the problem? Obama is the cause of the race disparity, as they would put it in quotation marks, in this country. Like, they want to deflect any and all negativity about that onto the first Black president that we've ever had.
Yeah, yeah.
How should one kind of look at that and respond to that?
Well, unfortunately, you have a lot of people who believe what they've been told. They believe the lies they were taught in school. They tend to believe that white supremacy culture prevails, and they think that when Obama showed up is when all the problems showed up. But our country is 6, 7, 800 years old, and honestly, it's been problematic since it started. So just the fact of our founders, once they came here and slayed the people who were actually here first, they decided that they were going to start the narrative of basically anti-black, anti-brown, and that they're less than. So I do believe that as people have that narrative that Obama was the problem, they're not necessarily being open to the fact that these problems have been around for hundreds and hundreds of years, and Obama was definitely not the issue.
I mean, my estimation is we go back even farther than that. We
Yeah,
look at the
yeah,
periods of history that we're taught in
yeah.
school, and we have
Hmm.
this term, the Dark Ages, from
Right,
around,
right,
I'd say, roughly the fall of the Roman Empire around 350 BC up
right,
until
right,
going
right,
towards the Italian
right,
Renaissance in the
right.
1200s. One
Hmm.
of the things that I really like to study is geography.
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
people think geography, they think of a place on a map or whatever. But I'm talking about
Right,
like all of the different languages that have been created from
right,
three going
right,
back thousands and
right,
thousands of
right.
years, and people don't see this. And we have this term, the Dark Ages, because the Saracens, the Muslims, the brown people were
Hmm.
conquering Europe, and they were
Hmm.
basically
Hmm.
overthrowing, they were overthrowing this the tribalism that was then. I don't think we can really compare it to now, just because we have this free flow of information all across the world in an instant kind of a thing. um, but it's crazy because then we have the Renaissance, and that's when or after going into the medieval ages, moving towards the Renaissance, it's all written by the European centric people that
Right,
look like me, who
right.
wrote all of that history. And it's
And also did
crazy.
a lot of the slaying and the barbaric things that have happened in their countries.
They did.
And
Oh,
that,
oh my God.
oh
Yeah.
yeah, always conquering. That's why there's no place that's not colonized.
And it's, I'm like, what we talk about, like little tiny remote tribes in the Amazon as being some of the
Right,
only people that
right.
are untouched by the modern world.
Hmm.
Okay. But like it's
I'd like to
starting to,
see it.
it's starting to go away. I mean, the guy
Right,
who's
right.
the
I'm
president
sure.
in Brazil right now has just been chopping down rainforests to plant palm tree to make palm tree oil, which again, another thing that drives me nuts because it's just not good for you. But anyway, it's just
This,
crazy though, because it
yeah.
goes back even before the dawn of our
Oh
country,
yeah,
in my
it goes back
opinion.
before America was even created. I mean, America is the youngest country. So I mean, you're talking about the fact that we're living in a country that was literally created, and everyone else has been around for thousands of years. We're the ones that are only a couple hundred years old. So considering we're such a young country, that's why we of course we're going to have these issues and problems. Of course we are.
And I think one of the things that really gets in our way, societally, to be able to move forward from things like this is everything has become so instantly gratifying with the
Mm-hmm.
rise of technology and how interconnected we all are within it. Um, and there's no reflection. I feel like we haven't taken a collective breath and looked back upon the last 15 years, 20 years, 40 years in a very long time as a society.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly, I feel slightly hopeless looking at it this way, because even if we did take a breath, I feel like we'd show back up and the two factions would be ready to fight each other again. And
Yeah.
how do you, as a professional in the line of work that you are, try and fill those divides and try and unify and bring people in?
Well, to be honest with you, it's just about really talking facts, right? I mean, one of the things that we strive to be is integrity filled and intentional, and making sure that we're authentic in this work and we're holding people accountable, and that we're interrupting white supremacy culture, right? So considering it's everywhere, it's embedded in every single system that we live every single day. It's just about recognizing that those systems are the way they are for a reason, to hold people down, to oppress, and just kind of bringing people into that and just allowing people to open their lens, because we get so much resistance because people don't want to believe it. And sometimes we get that resistance because people are angry about the fact that they were not told the truth, and that they've lived their entire adult lives and child lives, believing these things. So we just kind of like bring them in and just tell them it's okay. We're all traumatized. We've all been traumatized. No one has not been traumatized. There's no area that's not been colonized. So I mean, anti-blackness is across the world. So we just have to kind of have that dialogue and dig in and really look deeply in terms of why it's the way that it is and where do we want to go from here. It's not about guilt or shame. It's not about making anyone feel guilty, feeling shame, because it's not going to move us forward. We have to be accountable, and being accountable is the biggest piece of this.
Sometimes you got to swallow a little bit of your pride,
just a little bit,
to have some progress, to see things from a certain point of view. And sure. It's a shame that so many people seem to have been so well indoctrinated into what's comfortable for them and what works for them, that they can't step outside of their own lens and see things from other people's point of view.
It's not just non-brown white people, though. It's people of color as well. I mean, people of color have also been lied to. They've been swindled. A lot of us, believe that being lighter is better. Like there's colorism among, people of color, so, they live white adjacent. They feel as though, oh, well, I have a lot of money, so I don't fit that stereotype. When the reality is everybody gets pulled up by the cops, right? Whether they're rich or not. So, when it comes down to it, we just have to recognize that the things that we've been told, we have to have dialogue around it. The only way that we're going to break down these barriers of race is to have more conversations. There's going to be relationships that's going to break all this.
We have to spend time to understand. It can't be a 10-minute, it can't be a 5-minute news clip. Right. It can't be something you retweet on social media. We have to get back to the nitty-gritty of looking each other in the eye and really get to know each other. Because once we do that, it's so much easier to see people as not their color or how they identify. Right. It's you see the person as the person because you've seen in real time what their actual character is like. And it upsets me so much to see people so quick to judge. And I mean, I'm certainly guilty of it. There's no question about it. We all are. I mean, I work at a restaurant. I see somebody, I see, say, let's say it's an overweight white couple coming in with like 2 kids that are already on iPads and that are asking about anything that's on special or whatever. I immediately have my own bias in my head. And you know what, though, at this point in my life, I've grown to where it doesn't matter. You still have to go over and treat people the same way that you want to be treated, right? It's the golden rule.
Mhm, mhm.
And it blows my mind how many people miss that, even though that they preach that is their basis of morality. That is their basis of how they conduct themselves on this earth.
Yeah,
And I mean,
but you also know that, there's research out there that shows you time and time again that even as children, kids prefer a particular type of doll, the way the doll looks. Even a child of color will choose a doll that doesn't look like them because they're being programmed to think that white is better than brown. Right? Exactly. There's research upon research that talks about how people who are good looking, quote unquote, make more money. People who are overweight don't make more money, right? I mean, there's all this research out there that tells you how pretty people make more money. So and but it is what it is. I think that it's about like you said, relationships and having conversations and dialogues and really digging in. I had a colleague who said to me the other day, and I really believe this context. He said, um, diversity is when you're invited to the party, inclusion is when you're asked to dance. But what I included belonging is when you're asked to go back to their home, because you'll see so many people where they're friends and they'll hang out with folks where people of color will go to people that are non-brown whites houses all the time. But do you ever see people that are non-brown white going over to people of color's homes? Do you actually see them going to their neighborhoods and hang out there, right? Because I can tell you, in my life, I've had plenty of people. I've gone to plenty of people houses. People who are non-brown white had been, all my life had friends that way. But how many people really came to my house? Not that many, right? So I mean, we have to recognize that we also have to make sure that it's a relationship that's not one-sided too, right? So that we're really getting to know people and know how they live and what they're about and who they are, because that's real.
I
Relationships is going to break all of this.
I think that speaks to introspection and understanding the atrocities committed against communities of color, um, non-indigenous white folks have committed over the course of the history of the United States. And I think it goes to show a level of introspection and enlightenment in terms of, hey, this is one of the ways that we build that back a little bit, is by, hey, if this is, I think whoever told you that quote and then you carried it the next step, I think that belongs on a t-shirt too.
Mm-hmm.
I personally, I would rock around in that all the time. By the way, these are really comfortable. I'm like,
Yeah, I love those. I can't wait till mine comes.
it's super soft. It's super soft and really nice. But no, I something I never even would have thought about. That's kind
Yeah.
of a game changer for me.
Well, because people think that diversity means, anti-racism, and it doesn't. I mean, diversity is us looking at people and just saying, okay, we're diverse. There's a lot of us that look different, right? That's really what diversity is. And inclusion, even inclusion, when people are mixing, well, we're an inclusive place, we're an inclusive building, we're an inclusive company. Okay, that just means you have people who look and live a different lifestyle, right? That's all that is. But actual belonging is something different, because I could show up because you're inclusive. It doesn't mean I'm going to feel good when I get there, right? I have teachers tell me all the time, we have such a diverse community. We're very inclusive here. We have students of all different ethnicities. I'm like, yeah, just because you have them, that doesn't mean you like it. I mean,
And if you don't have that conversation with those kids,
right,
you don't know if they
right,
actually like it.
right,
You don't
right,
know if they feel welcome. You're just
right,
assuming
right,
because we've got
right.
to cut, we got it,
Because they're here. Because they're here. That doesn't mean anything. I could come to school every single day and feel like you hate me. And how do you really learn from a teacher that you think hates you? And how do you learn from a teacher that you hate? So
and
there's
it's
a
and
lot of
it's
work there.
and it's so hard. I can't even imagine. I
Mhm.
have so much respect and admiration for what you and your team do, because you're literally shattering lifetimes, generations. I mean,
Oh, oh
this
yeah.
DNA gets passed down. These ideas, like, just I'm fairly certain that research has shown that there are certain fundamental traits that get passed on from DNA to their parents, and that's through learned practices over generations and generations of how to respond to something.
Right.
Like, there's a
Yeah.
reason.
Trauma
Yeah,
gets passed down.
trauma gets.
Yeah, trauma gets passed down all the time. There's actually a book that I'm reading right now, Resma Menakem, Grandmother's Hands, that I'm reading right now for a class that I'm taking, because we're going to be starting affinity groups in the Lehigh Valley in Monroe County, and the book is excellent. Actually, We need to add it to our book list because I think we had the book list before that book came out. It only came out about a month ago, and it talks about that trauma that's in people's bodies and how that trauma affects people of color and how that trauma affects non-brown white people and how the trauma of race is deep, it's embedded. But
Uh-huh.
how do you live in a community like that? Like how do you not become racist when, like, he has this audio, it's actually a video of this woman named Tara. He did an interview with her, and he describes how a child is 5 years old and his father tells him, we're going to go out for ice cream. He's like, let's go out for ice cream. And the kid is excited because they're going out for ice cream. And he's like, come on, because the whole neighborhood's going to be there. And he takes them for ice cream and they're in a park. And the kid smells a faint smell of charcoal. And the kid's with his dad and everybody in the whole neighborhood's there, all the doctors and the attorneys and, everybody's there. His teachers are there. And his father leads him to a open space where a black body is being hung and burned. And he's looking around and everybody's just under it having a picnic like it's a great thing. How, as a child, do you not condition to think black is less than? If everyone in your neighborhood is there, everyone you love, teachers, your doctor, your pharmacist is all standing underneath a body being hung and burned, and everyone's just acting like it's normal. How does that not traumatize you? And how does that not ingrain in your body that is normal? You know what I mean? So all of this race stuff is traumatizing to everyone. It is not just people of color. And people have that tendency to think it's only traumatizing for people of color because it's affecting them. It affects all of us, every single one of us.
That sounds like a continuation of white supremacy culture to an extent, in my opinion, in the way that, at 5 years old, you don't know any better. Like we said before, like, kids are going to have preferences. There are certainly, like, as
Right.
I've watched my child grow, I see the way that he picks and chooses different things. And it's incredible to watch a little human's brain develop as they physically develop. But, like, yeah, that trauma is white
real.
supremacy culture.
And it's on all of us. It's on all of us.
And when we look at this idea of, hang on one second. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened here. All right, there we go. We're back. But, like, when we look at this idea, like, that's because I think if there's one thing that almost everybody will agree with. Now, there are plenty of people that will say, no, I am a racist outright. But I think for the most part, almost everybody believes that racism is bad.
Right.
But that trauma that comes from something like that, we don't even think of as white supremacy culture.
And it's generational.
And it's layered upon layered upon layered upon. I mean, that's like 12 layers deep, 13 layers deep. Whereas you have something like the segregation of housing is probably on the second or the third level.
Right. Right.
I mean, as far as my dumbass knows, I am not a professional. I am a bartender. All right. I have a wide variety of interests. Okay.
Right.
And I have a penchant for a second whiskey sour.
Exactly.
Oh my goodness, Kumari. Already a few minutes in, and you continue to open my eyes to different ways to look at just
it's deep. It's deep. It's deep. It's deep. And we have to recognize it. We have to recognize that and see it for what it is and dig deeper and lean in and ask more questions. And, people can't say I'm not racist. They just can't say that I'm just not racist because there's no way in heck you're not. Even people of color have issues with each other. So anyway, there's colorism among us. Of course, there's going to be colorism and racism outside of us.
I mean, so people throw around the definition of woke like it's this really bad thing. But if we look over the course of the human experiment and human history, we have been tribal based on the way that we sound, based on the way that we look, based on where we're from and what our tendencies are on. So we're really trying to change some fundamental aspects of our biology. Yeah. This is a Herculean task.
Yeah. That's why it has to be intentional. That's why it has to be constantly intentional, and you have to be constantly aware of yourself, paying attention to how you feel, paying attention to what comes up for you when things are said to you that make you feel uncomfortable. That's one of the reasons why in our trainings we always say lean into it. Like if you're uncomfortable, lean in, ask questions, jot down where you're confused, jot down where you're angry, because that's probably where you need to do your work. Like if you're getting angry when someone says Colin Kaepernick kneeled, you need to do some research on why you're upset about it. What angers you about that? I
The
mean,
fact that he consulted a Green Beret.
right? Exactly, exactly. Like, I mean, think about why you're angry about that. We've had people literally argue with us. We bring it up, and they're like, "Oh, they're anti-police, and they're anti-government." We've had people tell us that. So I mean, we recognize that people are definitely going to walk into this space and be angry about certain things. But why are you angry? What comes up for you when you think about the fact that someone who has been oppressed his whole life, now, okay, fine, everybody's like, but he's rich. Okay, but on Sunday, what has him make all this money on Sunday could get him arrested on Monday. So let's be real. Is he really out of the weeds? Because I've known plenty of times when people have been in regular clothes driving in their cars that were NBA and NFL players that got pulled over by cops who were treated unfairly because they didn't know who they were. So is it, again, it goes back to that. How does it really make you feel when you think about the fact that he disrespected the flag? I haven't pledged the flag since I was in 6th grade.
Do you know why they started the Pledge of Allegiance?
Out of respect for this country.
No, to sell
T-shirts?
flags, to
Sell
sell
flags.
flags,
Okay,
to
all right.
literally sell American
Okay,
flags.
that makes
to make
sense. That
money.
makes sense. That
Of
makes
course
sense.
it does. This is
Makes
America. We
sense.
do this to make
Makes sense.
money.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
And I stopped pledging when I was in 6th grade. I remember reading. We had to read it. We had to learn it. We had to talk about it. And I remember when I learned it in like 2nd grade, and then I started really listening to the words. And by the time I got to 6th grade, I was like, "This is some bullshit."
and the under God wasn't added until later.
Yeah.
In God we trust wasn't added into our
Yeah.
money until later.
Right.
And if people don't know real history,
In
the
fact,
actual truth of things that have funded, that have developed, and that have built these structures that support one thing. Like I read something the other day that a lot of Black people won't use the term patriot anymore.
yeah, a lot
It
of
might have
people.
been Malcolm Nance that was saying it, who was
Right.
who was heavily involved in our national security apparatus, lifelong
Yeah,
military.
I've heard
I
that.
see him a lot, and I listen to him. I really enjoy his viewpoint. I think he's a wonderfully articulate
Mhm.
man.
Mhm.
And he said something like Black and brown people aren't using the term patriot because it's been hijacked by white supremacists, and that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, people always say, does it mean that you're not proud to be an American? And it's like, I have no choice. I was born here, right? But at the same time, don't think that I haven't done a DNA test to find out where they stole me from, right? So, just to find out if there's any truth to what they say. So it is interesting because I've heard a lot of people say they don't believe in that patriot. They're not a patriot. I think that when you're born here, you don't have a choice but to be proud of it. But we definitely should not lie about what happened in history. I don't have a problem. I'm very proud of who I am. I'm very proud of my heritage. But at the same time, I think that we should be honest about what has happened in the past. So that's what I have an issue with it. When they lie or when they try to hide things, that's when I have an issue with it.
You look at post World War II Germany. They don't have any statues up to the Nazi regime. They have them in a museum.
In a museum,
And they
which is where
teach
it should
about
be.
it. They teach about
Yep.
it. In my opinion,
Because they
I
don't want
think,
it to happen again.
I mean,
Because
now I'll say this: when I was in Amsterdam 2 years ago, there were literal skinhead Nazi white supremacists that walked into the bar that I was
Mhm.
in the red light district, and that was crazy. That was
Mhm.
crazy. That I
Mhm.
saw actual white power skinhead Nazis walking into the bar. I've probably met a bunch down south. I
Mhm.
love my family down south, but I've probably met some people down there who do believe that
Mhm.
the Confederacy will rise again and all that bullshit. But you look at a country like Germany, they're at least honest
Mhm.
about how fucked up it was what they did
Yeah.
during World War II and
And
how
they don't want it to happen again.
no, they don't. They took some responsibility. We in America, we want to
Lie.
whitewash over this
Yeah.
like it's a coat of primer, like you're
Yeah.
getting ready to slap a
Yeah.
different coat of paint on it. And I think
Yeah.
that's actually kind of an apt description of how we handle adversity in this country is we'll
Mhm.
slap a coat of whiteness on it, then we put a
Right.
new color up and it said, hey, look, this now I can charge you $1,400 for this apartment
Mhm.
instead of $1,200. This is
Right. And it's
America,
really,
baby.
yeah, and this is really pretty. Don't you like it? Look at your scenery.
We shampooed the carpets too.
Exactly.
It's crazy. It's
It is.
crazy. That's the way that we do it. Like I have learned so much more about the American experiment and American history from a real standpoint of the atrocities that we've committed and the messed up shit that we've done by
Mhm.
reading, you know, different
on
books
numerous
after
upon
high school
books.
and after
Yes.
college. Like,
Yeah, the myth of race was really interesting for me because I always, you always hear that race was a social construct, but when I read that book, I really learned more about it, and just just a lot of the different literature that I've read over the years in terms of how this country was built and how it was founded and how it was twisted and the lies were told and how we're told all these different things when we're in school and like my son literally was reading around Thanksgiving there in his history class there was this picture of the Indians with the with the Puritans and they're all sitting around a circle and they're eating a beautiful turkey and they're having food and they're passing the food off to each other. And I was like, "Can I please email your teacher about this?" And he was like, "Please leave it alone. Please, I know the truth. Please leave it alone." I was like, "But she's teaching the other kids this lies too." He's like, "Just leave it alone. I know the truth. Please just leave it alone." But how are you teaching this in history class? And don't think there's something wrong with that.
they teach it comfortably
So
because it's
comfortably.
easy, because it's easier than having
Plus,
a
they
real
don't know the truth.
conversation.
Plus, they don't know the truth. It's easier to say that we were all friends and they died off peacefully, opposed to they were slaughtered and killed off.
We not only murdered them through our expansion across this country and illegal taking of the land, but the diseases and everything that we brought with them. I mean, we killed off 95% of the indigenous
I know.
population on this
I
continent
know.
within 150 years.
Right.
150 years ago, the Comanches ruled the lands of Texas. And if you would try and go to El Paso and get some barbecue, you get shot in the chest with a bunch of arrows. That's 150 years ago. That's 2 lifetimes ago. How quickly we forget and how quickly we just ignore these things that are so much a part of the fabric of where our nationalism and patriotism comes from.
Definitely.
It upsets me.
Yeah.
But
I hear you.
am I being too woke? Like, I hate this. I hate the term woke. All right, I hate the term woke.
I know a lot of people that hate that term
woke. Politicized and weaponized.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that hate that word woke.
Are you one of those people, Kumari?
Honestly, I think it's funny, but I mean, I don't. I don't know. I joke about it. I don't know, but I also have a very twisted humor, so it's
me
probably...
too. And I think that's so important.
I probably have a very twisted humor. I think that we probably laugh about things that most people should not laugh at. But I mean, at the same time, you have to keep yourself from crying too, because I mean, when you look at all some unfortunate ignorance that we capture and we encapsulate every single day, you kind of have to have a sense of humor, or you'll go batty by the end of the night. So
yeah, I think that's something we're missing as people, is like a sense of humor about certain things. Like yes, as we are continuing to learn and explore critical race theory more and understanding the layers upon layers upon layers that have been built and are part of our structural foundation. If we can't joke about certain things, like that's problematic in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I love Dave Chappelle. Like he's my favorite. I absolutely adore him. I don't know if you saw. I was telling I told my team about the Chris Rock special and how he talks about how there just should be some professions that don't have any bad apples. When you talk about the whole fact of police brutality, and he says there just should be some of those professions just shouldn't have bad apples, like pilots, because you never hear American Airlines saying, just some of our pilots just like to every now and then run into a mountain, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
So you should have some professions that do not have bad apples, and cops should be one of them. Nurses, doctors, right? You don't see anybody accidentally killing anybody. So I mean, realistically, we should have those professions that don't have bad apples, and cops should be one of them. So I mean, I just think that comedy is probably one of those ways that we can kind of get away with saying certain things. So I absolutely adore comedy. It's my way of getting out of my head. I listen to it every day. There's sometimes we have a really a rough training, and I'll go right into a comedy special. I've probably seen Dave Chappelle probably for the first year that we were really busy. I would watch him every single night after a training just to get out of my head, because he makes race funny.
I've never heard Dave Chappelle be kind of quoted as a decompression tool. So that's a very interesting perspective that you're providing me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, he makes me laugh. I think
comedians are modern day philosophers, to be perfectly honest with you.
He's so smart with it. The way he crafts his jokes and makes fun of race, like it's just Because again, if you don't, you go crazy if you thought about how serious it is. It's such a serious topic. You actually really could be angry all the time if you wanted to be. But, what's time for anger? Life's too short.
Plenty of people have time for anger, apparently.
Oh, I know they do, but
The
life's
problem
too
with
short.
lockdowns.
Yeah, I know.
I'm over the
True
lockdowns.
facts.
I'm over the
Facts.
lockdowns, but
Facts, so am I.
I understand that the vaccinations are important for this. And I understand that we're
Yeah,
probably going to have to
yeah.
be vaccinated almost similar to the flu moving forward for now. I think in the
Yeah, this
next
is
few
gonna be
years, that's
interesting.
what's going to happen. And that's okay.
I keep hearing that. I'm still on the fence. I'm still on the fence.
About the vaccine?
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
Yeah, there's a little bit too much history behind me just trusted it. And considering, the history behind people of color and doctors and medicine and all the horrible things that have happened to people of color, they've used vaccines to sterilize communities, like in 1964, I think it was in North Carolina. Tuskegee as well, right.
The
But
syphilis experiments on
that one
Tuskegee.
too, right. But there was a town in North Carolina that they used a vaccine and told everybody they had to be vaccinated, and they sterilized them. And it was in North Carolina, and I've read so many accounts and reports of people who couldn't have children because of being vaccinated and sterilized at the same time, and them not knowing, and they were teenagers when it happened. And something like that just kind of like it leaves a terrible taste in your mouth and just makes you not want to trust. So unfortunately, I'm one of those people that will probably have to be told, if you don't get a vaccine, you can't go to Giant. I'm probably gonna be one of those people, unfortunately, because I got to see if anybody's glowing in the first 6 months. I'm sorry, it was what, a year they put
That's
this
why
out.
do the politicians first. That's why you vaccinate the politicians first.
Now I don't know if they're using the same one they're gonna use on me though. I'm just saying. I'm skeptical. I'm skeptical of medicine though. I won't even let my own child get an HPV shot. So I just have to just pay attention and focus. And I don't know. Like, even when the MMR came when he was little, and everybody would talk about, oh, it causes autism, and you have to get it or he can't go to school. Okay, well, he'll just get it one every month, and that's
Vaccines
what we did.
don't cause vaccines do not cause autism.
I know they don't, but it was all this hoopla and all this rhetoric and all these things, and I'm aware of that, but you just never know what people are doing. You know, you just never know what people are up to. So we would just, and honestly, I'm telling you, it's interesting because I'm from New Jersey. I'm not from here. The culture in Lehigh Valley is extremely different than it is in where I came from. I think I was telling somebody the other day, I never had a doctor who was non-brown white until I moved to Lehigh Valley. Every doctor I've had my entire life, except the one who literally delivered me, was brown, black or brown. So it's very interesting how here it's so different, and how the culture is different, and the way people speak is different, and how people think is different. So it's a little bit of a little bubble.
The Lehigh Valley is a safe space.
Oh yeah.
It is so weird how many safe spaces are within this safe space, but the Lehigh Valley is exactly a bubble. Like you said, I believe there is 2 to 3 degrees separation in the Lehigh Valley if you have been here for like more than 2 generations, as opposed to 6 degrees of separation that a lot of people say.
Right.
And it's so bizarre.
It's interesting.
So bizarre.
It's interesting. The people who I met that are over 50 that have been here their whole lives, their thinking process is so interesting to me. Where a lot of people of color are very white adjacent because they were told that they were less than, they were talked down to, their families were disrespected. Like one young lady told me that they moved here when she was 7 from Queens. And she said that she realized almost immediately that people were going to be disrespectful to her mother because her mother didn't speak English as well as everyone else. And she remembers, translating for her mother in a supermarket, and the person who was checking them out was being very disrespectful to her. And she was just like, I realized immediately that people were not going to be kind to my family, and it's unfortunate. That's not right. It's
not.
Where I come from, everybody looks the same. I didn't. Everybody, when I grew up, everybody was brown.
That's segregation, in my opinion.
Everybody was brown. Doctors were brown, teachers, principals, your mayor. Everybody was brown.
I mean, I watched the movie Green Book last year, and it was incredibly fascinating to me.
Yeah, that was a good.
And then His Dark Materials came out on HBO, which was written by H.G. Lovecraft, who was one of the first Black sci-fi authors that I've ever read about in America. And it was very interesting. I think pop culture is trying to catch up and try and shed some light on some of this bullshit that has been part of our history and our experiment here in America. Right. But I'm curious, to you, as somebody who works directly with people that work within parts of our government, in education, in that, do you believe the corporate wokeism, the corporate hype around trying to create a racially equitable future for Americans? Do you believe them?
Give me, explain what you mean. Do I believe?
Okay, so Gillette, which is an American-made razor company for men out of Boston, made an ad a couple years ago, or like a year and a half ago, I want to say, that was all about saying F you to toxic masculinity. You've got Pepsi that comes out with an ad last year after George Floyd was murdered in Minnesota, or Wisconsin. Shit. Minnesota. Thank you. I'm sorry. And they come out with an ad that's got a black woman holding a Pepsi up to a line of police officers in riot gear. That's Pepsi showing their solidarity with a racially equitable movement. You've got just a lot of these large corporations.
Good for Pepsi.
Huh?
I think it's interesting. Good for Pepsi. I think it's interesting because I think people are realizing that not getting on the bandwagon makes them look terrible. I don't think it's that they are doing it because they want to. I think they're doing it for face, to sell products. Unfortunately, I don't know if a lot of them are really aware of what it really means to be racially equitable, especially considering you have so many companies who miss the mark all the time. Like when you have H&M, who had that ad where it said the little black boy had a sweatshirt on, the little non-brown white boy had a sweatshirt on, and the little black boy sweatshirt said "cutest monkey in the jungle," and the little non-brown white boy's sweatshirt said like "king of the jungle," something like that. It was very different, and you could see the difference. And people went in an outrage, like they went in an uproar, and how dare they do this? And I'm not going to lie to you, me as a social worker and as a person who thinks the way I do, I'm like, who was in the room in marketing? Who was in the marketing room? Like there's no way there was a person of color in that room unless they were white adjacent and didn't care. Because the reality is anyone who's a person of color would have looked at that and said, y'all gonna get in trouble for this. Like, I mean, straight up, they would have told you, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't know if you want to put
stupid or intentional would be the question I would ask.
Right. There's no way. There's no way. And so that's what makes me think that all these different people who push and jump on board, I'm kind of like, who's in the room?
I don't buy the bullshit. I don't buy the bullshit.
I'm quite sure it's not a person of color. I'm quite sure you're doing this for face. H&M just missed the mark completely. They missed the mark completely. There was another company that did the same kind of thing, but at this time they were almost mocking Indian or indigenous people. And that was another one that was a missed mark. So I mean, you kind of like always wonder, like, who is in the room in these marketing rooms? It is obviously not people of color, because they would tell you, don't do that.
Did you see the latest controversy over the weekend?
Which one?
Mr. Potato, Mr. Potato Head. Mr. Potato Head is just going to become Potato Head.
Because of gender?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can see that.
Hasbro went back as of this morning, and they're going to keep it as Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head.
Yeah, I can see that though. I mean, we're moving into a different wave of understanding now, and I think it's important for us to be respectful, and we have to ensure that we're not harming anyone.
Agreed, wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
That has to start with legislation at the top, and this is the only trickle down kind of stuff that I believe in, is our legislation has to reflect that. And then the general attitude of person to person contact needs to reflect that. That's the only kind of trickle down that I think will actually be effective in helping us heal as the American society. I think I just hate the ability to pressure on social media for certain things. I hate the idea that cancel culture is the term that was picked up by the right and wokeism is the term on the left.
Mm,
Now I vote Democrat. I typically prefer their policies. I will say that there are certain aspects of the right that I agree with. There are certain aspects of
yeah,
the left that I agree with, but
yeah.
they're all a bunch of fucking hypocrites. Sorry for swearing.
Well, I mean, you figure politics in itself is manipulation. So
Yeah, just
it's
trying to get
not like,
elected.
yeah, it's not like either side. So a lot of times they really don't have a side, and most people just want to make money. So I personally think that money should be a political aspect.
Well,
Just vote money.
we've weaponized money when they passed Citizens United years back. That's when they weaponized money and made it this tool that allows people in power to maintain that power to write the laws and
Of
shape the
course,
judiciary and be able to craft how we move forward into the future. And it's
of
bullshit.
course, of course.
Um,
Money definitely weaponized. I mean, I think that a lot of people don't even realize how money is used and why money is used, and everybody has this scarcity about money. Oh my goodness, there's not enough of it. Just go print some. It's not that serious.
please, we've got
Literally, I'm sorry.
we have
It's
a gross domestic product of roughly $23 trillion a year. We have over $5 trillion of paper currency in circulation around the world. The US dollar is the world trade currency. Like, and now we've
I'm
got Bitcoin, Dogecoin, and everything in
right, right. Like I
between.
don't believe it. I don't like it's even 2008. The recession told us one thing when they cut checks for trillions of dollars for those banks that were too big to fail. We learned for sure that there is enough money to go around. Anyway, you could just go print some money and give it to some banks that decide to screw
790
us all over.
billion
Are
to
you
pull them out of the
kidding me?
hole.
There's enough money for everybody. Just go print some money. It's not that serious. Just go print it.
Did you follow Andrew Yang at all in the
I
previous
did a little. Yeah, I
presidential?
did a
Yeah.
little. I did a
His
little.
universal basic income, which has come in the form of 3 stimulus checks now, or
Right.
potentially a third. We'll see if that actually
Right.
happens.
You know what? It's interesting though because I think that a lot of people are very. Somebody was talking about that yesterday. People are very into these stimulus checks, and I think that it's fair because none of us did anything wrong, to cause everything that's happened that we lost our jobs. So I personally think the government should only help us take care of ourselves
Yeah.
because I mean we didn't do it. We
Uh huh.
didn't. We didn't. We didn't cause it. It's not our fault it spread the way it did. It's
We
not our fault
followed their lead.
I know. And unfortunately, that's all we could do. You had everything open, so we had to go do whatever we were doing until you shut everything down. And then by the time you shut everything down, people were already dying. So, you know, unfortunately, they should pay for it. They should cut the check and send it to everybody.
I mean, we're still gonna pay for it.
Mm.
I
Well,
like
you gotta do your taxes in order to get the money, though. That's how they get you.
I like Warren Buffett's proposal. Are you familiar with Warren Buffett? That
Yeah, I
old
like Warren
man.
Buffett. I like Warren
So do
Buffett.
I. So do I. He said if the he said something years ago that the way that we can maintain fiscal responsibility is that anytime that we are 3% over the deficit is 3% over what our annual gross domestic product is, what our output is as a nation, no politician that is currently sitting can run for reelection.
Right.
And if
That's
we were
fair.
to do if we were to do something like that, we would have a balanced budget.
We sure would. Because
We
people would
could
make
do it.
sure that we do because they
We
couldn't
could
go back
do
in
it.
office.
The payment that we gave the bankers back in 2000 and the auto industry and the mortgage industry,
Yep.
while
Mortgage,
letting
banks.
regular people fail because the
Right.
banks were greedy assholes.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
that
That's
totals about 1 year's worth of spending at the Pentagon.
I know. I know. That's one of the reasons why I appreciated a lot of those politicians who were definitely trying to assist people in understanding what was really going on. People talked about Elizabeth Warren like a dog, but I respected the hell out of her
That
when she was
I
walking
would have preferred her
around.
to be
When
president.
she was walking around, going house to house, like you don't have to get out of your house, sitting down with people and explaining the reason why they don't got to leave, like just regular folk, just walking down the street with her crew. Like I totally respected that because she knew that what was happening was wrong and dead ass wrong, and she knew that they were using us. So I appreciated her, appreciated for it.
What are your thoughts on Kamala Harris?
A lot of people love her. Um, I'm I'm hoping that she'll do a good job. I'm not I'm not a huge fan because a lot of things that happen in California. Um, I'm not a person that's saying like, nay to her. Um, I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't even realize that she considered herself a woman of color until people started telling me, because from what she'd seen before when she was just a senator, I didn't catch that. I didn't catch that she thought she was a woman of color. Then all of a sudden, everybody started talking about she went to Howard and she was you know, all these sororities she was a part of. Okay, great. I appreciate her. I respect her. I respect Joe Biden. But let's be real. The bar was on the floor, so all they really had to do was just pick it up, and whatever they just chose to do was going to be better than what we had. So, yeah, I respect her for what she's doing, and I hope that she does a good job.
And if it wasn't for a woman like Stacey Abrams, we might not be having a conversation about Kamala Harris being the vice president of the United States.
Very true.
I wanted her to be vice president.
I love Stacey Abrams.
I wanted her to be vice president, and I wanted Elizabeth Warren to be president. I mean, listen, I was a Bernie guy back in 2016.
Yeah.
All right, Bernie in his 70s. I'm like, you don't need to be president, dude. You don't need to be president.
Bernie's a cutie, but he should have been president.
I'm sick of old people being president now. Like, I'm over that.
I was definitely I really love Stacey Abrams. I think she has a very wonderful take on things, perspective, but they weren't going to let her win because she's never ran a budget as large as that. So,
and you know what she said? And she said, fuck it. I don't need it. I'll go get you Georgia. And guess what? When you guys want to take back a majority in the Senate, like for real, like filibuster proof majority, call that woman. Call that woman.
Right. I hear you. I agree with you on that.
But I am personally not happy with the party of the Democrats right now. I think they are doing a really shitty job so far in terms of having the majority. They got some work to do. They still want to play by the rules.
Well, they're scared. They're scared of losing. When you're scared of losing,
they need to not be. They need to enact legislation. The Republicans are scared of losing. It doesn't matter. They cram it down our throats, and we have to accept it. Like, screw the norms. I'm done with it personally. I'm sorry that I'm getting fired up.
Okay.
But this is where I draw the line, that we've played ball for so long that screw it. Play by the rules that the other side has set and see how much they like it. See, then they'll come to the table instead of just vote against every proposal because they feel like they're owning the libs. It's ridiculous.
People are scared. People are scared of losing votes. They're scared of not pleasing everybody. I mean, let's be real. Look at Obama. Obama came in and people swore up and down he was going to be the black president who saved black people. But it's like he does have to be the president for everybody. He cannot be the president just for people of color. However, at the same time, a lot of people had a lot of issue with him. People had a lot of issue with his policies, where he ran things. But again, I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think that he did a terrible job.
No, not at all.
And he didn't have us at war with each other. That's for sure. You know what I'm saying?
He had us at war in the Middle East.
Well, yeah. But I mean, I don't necessarily know or think that he would have us in war if he didn't think that it had to happen. But at the same time, let's be real, he still had to please people too.
Yeah. Listen,
I don't think he did it because he wanted to.
I saw something come out.
He wanted to pull all the troops out. Remember he wanted to pull everybody out.
And Trump just said, F it, I'm going to do it. I don't care what anybody else says. And people are like, yeah. And then people that work that are career inside of the Pentagon and the military are like, no.
Oh, please. People that were in the military were ready to walk off. I have family who are in the military. But like, if he puts us in another war, I'm just going to get locked up, because they were just like, we're not going to go to war for his ego. So
I think we just got to stop going to war in the Middle East. I think we need to let them.
I agree.
Pull out, let them internalize their stuff. We need to, this whole military industrial complex. Like, I'll go back to Eisenhower, post World War II. And they literally they edited his, the speech when he was done with his presidency. They edited his speech to say that he could not say the congressionally funded military industrial complex. They literally took that out of Eisenhower's farewell speech as president.
Right.
And like the continuation of that year over year, we look at that $780 billion a year that this country spends of tax dollars on the military industrial complex to have private contractors in the Middle East, to be able to bomb whoever we want, to maintain nuclear, to do whatever. And it's just, I feel like we need to pull that back, and we need to spend a little bit of time focusing on ourselves, Kamari?
All of this is our control and wanting to make money. It's
Yeah,
all
it's exactly what
control.
it is. It makes
It's
money.
all control and
It,
making money
yeah,
at the cost of people's lives.
it sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. All right. So Kamari, let's,
Yeah.
I'm going to end on this hypothetical, if I may.
Okay.
I'm going to give you, my friend, Kumari Ghafoor-Davis, a magic wand. You get to fix this shit. I'm the genie. You get 3 wishes and a magic wand. What do we got?
3 wishes. Um, that's a good one. Let's see. Well, I would have to say, considering the work we do, that things were equitable in a way where people would recognize that we're more similar than we are different.
Which it turns out when we talk to each other a little bit, we usually figure that out.
Yeah, we do, and not looking at people who do see them as unicorns, because I've always been considered a unicorn. Like, you don't look like the others, you don't sound like the others either, and you went to graduate school. Wow!
Oh my gosh, how complimentary!
Oh please,
assholes!
You're so articulate, that thing. So
I've said that. I was guilty of that for a while when I was younger, and like I look back on it and I'm like, oh, dick.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is that if we're looking at it in terms of we're all the same, and we're all in this together. If people looked at it that way, we'd be a lot better off. If people saw and realized that, the powers that be is really the enemy. I'm not trying to sort of revolt or anything, but that's really the issue here. Government tries to hold these things over you and keep you, this is scarcity and there's not enough. So we have to all fight for these resources. This is the way that it is. And it's like, nah, just go print some
capitalism. Money. That's not
right. But that's a part of government.
Oh, that's how we're driven. That's how the government is driven.
Of course. But at the same time, it goes back to the fact of just go print some money. Give us our reparations because you owe us. And and let's all start on an equal footing. And I think we'll be good. Right. So, because I think that a lot of times, people don't recognize that people are just people. You're going to meet a lot of assholes that are brown. You're going to meet some assholes that are non-brown white. So people are going to be people. But if we just kind of like build relationships and we start on an equitable foot, I think we'll be good. So that would be like my little magic wand. Exactly.
I think booze is a great place to start. I also think cannabis is one of those things where we really have an opportunity because, like the whole idea, what do you want to see? Do you want to see a bunch of drunks in an alley looking for a fight or a bunch of stoners looking for a pizza? I'm in for pizza. I'm in for pizza every time.
I have to say that I also wish that that capitalism was something that I get that people want to make money, but unfortunately it has made us very greedy and angry and mean and awful towards each other. So
we have been forever. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
It really has caused us to be evil people, like, because money's the root. Money's the root of all evil, right? So I probably would want to dispel the capitalist model just a little bit. Doesn't mean you can't make money.
It needs to be tweaked.
No. Doesn't mean that you can't make a lot of money, right? It just means that you can't use and oppress people to do it.
I feel all right. So all right, let me I want to come back for a second here. I think one of the things, something that I like to think about, that I don't think a lot of us think about, is what is our legacy of this generation of technological innovation going to be? Like, what's the thing? All right. So, we look back now. We considered people that didn't look like me to be physical property that would do anything that we wanted, and we could brutalize, we could torture, we could torment, we could do whatever we wanted to that population of people. I think in 100 years from now, we're going to look back at the technological revolution across the world, and we're going to realize that we're kind of doing the same thing, but for a pittance of wages. It's essentially indentured servitude for your entire life for like Chinese, the Southeast Asian nations, African nations, the Atlantic nations that are going to get swallowed up by the oceans because we're fucking up the environment. I feel like we're going to look back. We basically have capitalistic slavery within our labor force. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest regrets of our generation.
Yeah, I can see that, especially considering one of the things that probably bothers me the most. Like you hear all these things now where they're fighting for $15 minimum wage, and let's be real, $15 is nothing to raise a family on. So so I have to agree with you on that. That definitely needs to be something that is.
I'm even
tweaked and
talking about in
dispelled.
developing nations
Oh yeah,
where
oh yeah.
they're digging up the rare earth minerals, they're
Mhm,
assembling this,
mhm,
they're stitching
mhm,
that. You know, I see things
mhm,
made in
mhm,
Cambodia,
mhm.
made in Pakistan, made in
Oh yeah,
Taiwan,
it's
made
cheaper
in China. You
because
know,
everything in America is made is expensive. Everything here is
those cheap bastards outsourced to
right
to an extent of slave labor, in my
because
opinion.
they would rather pay $1 for a week than pay $15 an hour. Right, right. Which
And
goes
part of
back to which goes back to us being greedy as all hell.
exactly that's yeah, that's where I was
Mhm.
trying to come full circle, was that is that it's built off of greed.
Greed. So that greed is something else I would definitely try to dispel. I think that people should not be able to make billions off of people's labor in
Once you
that way.
get to $1 billion, you get a fucking pizza party with your friends, and then you start it go again. All right.
You have to start giving back.
You can keep 999 million nine
Right,
hundred
right.
ninety-nine thousand $999, but once you get to that billion, you just get a pizza party, and then you got to start
No.
over. Seriously, like,
I think minimum wage should be higher than $15. I think that people should make a fair living. They should not have to scrunge and scrape I personally think there should be definitely we need to have some kind of universal type health care. I'm not saying that, I totally get this expensive, but let's be real. Again, these problems are not things that we've created. So
what am I
I
going
think
to
we need to
choose, to
fix it.
die of cancer or pay my hospital bill? I'm pretty sure
I
there's only
know.
one choice there. So,
I
like, looking
know.
at healthcare as a for-profit thing or as a business,
I
it's just
know.
wrong.
And
That's
you're
where a,
making money off people being sick.
that's where a
So you
mental
literally
reset needs
right,
to happen.
right. So when you look at all these different movies and documentaries on sugar and health crises and the fact that you're literally pumping us all with sugar to make us sick so you can make money off of us.
Fucking stofers.
Yep. So when you look at the fact that people are literally making all this money off people just being sick, like that's the reason why they never cured AIDS because it's making more money on the come up. And now you look at cancer too.
It's a
Like I'm,
treatment. It's a
oh
treatment
my
problem. It is
gosh,
not, they're not trying
I
to
know
cure it. It's a
so
treatment.
many people who are like literally have gone through chemo 4 and 5 and 6 times. Like, come on, you're just making money off the come up. It's awful. And the thing about it is, if you catch it before stage 3, unless it's extremely hella aggressive, you'll likely live. But if you're a person who doesn't take care of yourself and you
Or
catch it
doesn't
in stage
trust the
right,
medical
right,
professionals.
and you catch it in stage 4, the
It's
likelihood of
another,
you living,
it's another
they'll still
layer.
take your money though. They'll still take your money. They'll still
Hell
put
yeah,
you through
they'll take the
chemo.
money you don't have.
They'll still put you through chemo, but you're gonna die.
They'll take money you don't have. You'll go bankrupt, but you'll be
Oh,
alive. You can just then go die on the streets, because that's how fucking cold capitalism is.
yeah,
When we look at everything as market driven, it's
yeah.
ridiculous. There
It's
needs to be a
awful.
healthy balance. We don't have that.
No, we don't.
I
You can
don't
just
have the
make you
answers
can
either.
make every dollar and have everybody else be poor, broken poor, and you can have all the money. And so it's very it's awful. But that's why people come here, right? Isn't that why people come here? Because it's capitalist society. Because it's not all flatlined across the board.
It's a
That's why
land of
people come to this
opportunity.
country.
It's a
It's a
land of
land of opportunity. You
opportunity.
can make millions. You can have nothing and make millions if you go and step on everybody until you way to the top.
Moses took the Israelites across the desert 40 years searching for the land of milk and honey.
Yeah,
And like, come on.
yeah,
There's some bullshit like the golden calf. Oh my God, don't even get me
yeah.
started. Like the
Mhm.
conservative political action conference, it's happening in Florida right now. They literally have a golden statue of Donald Trump
Wow.
that looks like a rendition of Mickey Mouse with American flag shorts and a red and white striped shirt. And I've seen pictures of grown men on their hands and knees worshiping like a Muslim looking to Mecca to pray And Moses,
Okay.
when they crossed through the desert, he went up to Mount Sinai and he got the 10 commandments from God. Fun fact, some of the bushes that are over there are high in some psychoactive ingredients that if they were to catch on fire or anything like that and they burn and you ingest them, you're going to trip balls like you're eating
Wow.
mushrooms or acid or something.
Oh,
And there are a
wow.
lot of historians that believe that Moses was actually tripping when he went up Mount Sinai and came back down, but they were worshiping a golden calf. And it's very well documented within the Bible,
Possibility.
within most religious texts.
That is a possibility. Yes,
We're
yes, yes.
falling prey to this bullshit
Right.
again because
Right.
people are scared. They're essential isms that they have known and have lived with forever are being challenged by this idea that, like, hey, maybe that black dude that lives down the block is like a person like me and I should just treat him like a person like me.
Right.
But these liberals say that it's got to be a certain way, and it's just, I'm flummoxed and I'm exhausted with how ignorant.
So am I.
I'm exhausted. I can only imagine. I can't because I'm a white dude.
Who gets to be white at the end of the day? Yep.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'll never be able to imagine. I can only try and understand, empathize, and be a better person.
Yeah.
It's
exhausting. It is very exhausting.
Well,
It's exhausting when you meet the ignorance. It's exhausting when you meet the people who are irritated with you because you want things to be better because they look at people of color's promotion as their demotion. They don't look at it as when we all do better, we all do better. They can't see it as let's just all do better and make it better for everybody.
Rising tides raise all ships. We have enough shit.
Yeah.
We have enough stuff to make everybody be able to live comfortably. Not everybody wants a white picket fence or a black picket fence or a green picket fence and 2.5 kids and a dog.
Yeah.
You know, statistically, right?
My husband and I argue about this because I am not a proponent for the white picket fence and the American dream.
That American dream, the 1950s American dream.
It's not me. Like, I'd rather spend all of my money on fantastic trips with family members and hang out and laughter and fun than go into this whole thing of a mere American dream. So,
like, I don't want the stuff for me. I want to be comfortable.
Right.
But I don't want everything. I don't need a giant house. I don't need 2 other houses. I don't need any of that shit.
I'm still debating if I want a house.
I need a neighborhood where I love, like, most of the people that are in the neighborhood. Like, there's always going to be a Stan that lives down the road. It's a fucking asshole and doesn't shovel his sidewalk when it snows 2 feet in a day. But, like, that's fine. That's fine. That's okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whatever. Hey, the neighbors are probably going to come down and shovel that sidewalk for him because we're all just happily living together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we've got a nice.
I just want us to love on each other. Like, I really want us to love on each other. I guess it's my third thing for us to just be more open and be more honest and lean in when you're uncomfortable and ask questions and no, don't touch my hair, but we could talk about it, so but it's just about people just being open and just having dialogue, like let's talk about our commonalities. You know what I'm saying? I've never met anyone in my life that that was non-brown white that didn't have the same aspirations as I do, or didn't want their kids to have the same aspirations that I want my kids to have. Like, no one's walking around saying I want to be a bum and I want to be a criminal. No one is saying that. I've worked with the quote unquote worst of the worst. I've had guns pulled out on me. I've had knives pulled out on me. I've had knives pulled out on staff that I worked with. Like, I mean, I've never met a child who was, of the unfortunate, that everyone would call unfortunate children that was like, I'm going to be a bum when I grow up. I think I'm going to be a drug dealer, a bum, and rob people. Like, I've never met anyone that thought that way. It was always about, this is about survival. This is how I live because I have to survive. And I made choices that were not great because I had to survive. Because again, we live in a very white supremacy culture type system that causes me to not have opportunities that other people have. So I'm just hoping that people will just be more open with each other and love on each other and care for each other, and we can figure out a way to flatline this capitalist society so that people can't make 20 billion trillion quintillion dollars while somebody else is, living on under a rock. So yeah.
For $7.25 an hour. Kumari, I'm a drug dealer. I'm really good at it. It's just legal. It's been legal for the
Oh
exception of
yeah, but
13
they try to
years.
make it illegal at one point. They sure did. The people started making it in their bathtubs. They said, we got to bottle this stuff.
It was those goddamn white women within the Christian movement that
I
couldn't deal
know.
with, like, oh
I
man,
know.
a man sees my ankle
Are
and
you
he is
kidding me?
flummoxed.
Whatever. They realized they were going to make some hot money off of it, and that's when they had to make it legal. That's what's going to happen with all these drugs.
Dude, that's when organized crime came to the
I
Americas.
know. I know. I know.
It was prohibition. They fucked
know.
up when we don't allow certain things to be a part of our
People
cultural
do it
norm and give
illegally.
people choices. You
People
don't
do it
give people
illegally.
choices, then there's going to be a
Yeah.
vacuum of need there. And who fills that? People that are seen as
Yeah.
bad people. Like, think about the amount
Yeah.
of brown and black men and women who are still in prison for petty cannabis offenses.
And that's probably my fourth one, my wand. They need to get out of jail.
That needs to be number one on your wand, in my opinion.
I
We need to
agree.
get rid of
I
our
agree.
fucking jail
I
system
agree.
in this
The
country.
prison system is awful. You know what? I will. You're absolutely right. That should be number one. I agree.
I
Because I was very grateful that they started letting people out. And I'm very grateful that they started letting people out. And I do think that they still need to go back to people who have been in jail for 20 years for selling weed. You need to let them all out.
Yo, G.I. Joe, get on this and pardon all
Just
petty
open the
and
doors.
anything that is considered a misdemeanor marijuana
Yep.
offense.
Yep.
Just get rid of it.
For
FDA,
real. For real.
de-
It should not just be
declassify-
California either. It should not just be California either because they can sell it in their backyards. It should be everywhere. Open the doors.
Listen,
Floodgates
all right. The
open.
realities of COVID is we are looking at budgetary shortfalls all across this country.
We are.
In every state. What I think cannabis is the answer.
I bet you do.
I honestly think I think cannabis and psychedelics. I am not for drugs that can kill you if you have too much of them. I think your cocaine, your crack cocaine, and your methamphetamines.
Yeah, those are very.
I think those
strong.
need to
Yeah,
be
those are harmful.
heavily regulated.
Those, yeah, I hear
Magic mushrooms and acid and cannabis are three that.
you. I hear things, and people talk about them. I'm not a cannabis user, and I've never been person who smoked.
I will be until the day I die.
I know I have so many friends and family members and people in my life that are like they swear by it. But I have to say that is one thing that they definitely need to change those laws. They need to let people out, and then people should not be in jail for things that they did that are now legal because that's not fair.
I spent almost 2 weeks in Northampton County medium security waiting to go to a court date in Montgomery County for a misdemeanor cannabis possession back, probably 7 years ago. It was crazy. It was crazy for a bag of weed, for like not a big bag of weed. It was a very small bag of weed. I spent almost 2 weeks in prison.
It wasn't even intent. It wasn't even intent or distribution.
I actually had an intent to distribute, but but I did not. I was unable to possess as much as I wanted to distribute at the time. I was only able to acquire a sample, but I legit spent 2 weeks in jail for having a small bag of weed on my person.
Wow.
It's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I'm a pretty white boy. No, I'm kidding.
Honestly, I kid you not. I think that, the fact that I have friends who grow in California and friends who grow in Colorado. So anyway, you can grow it and you can sell it. They just need to figure out a way to regulate it. Once they figure out a way to regulate it so they can just sell it, I think everybody should be able to sell it and grow it in their yards or
Kumari,
in their garages.
you have young men. You have young men that have learned from you, that have worked with you, that have developed what is going to be the only accredited job training university in the country for the cannabis industry east of Colorado.
I've heard. Yes.
I did a podcast with him.
I work with them. I work alongside them. We all do this work together. They don't work for the same organization, but
I know
work.
One of them used to, but not anymore. But
he's my predecessor.
They love you.
Oh, I adore them.
I do too. And I love
them.
you too. I think you all are incredible at what you do. And I think that the work that you do is so incredibly important for us to fundamentally realize the truth that lies within the history of our country and where we go. and how we actually get back to the ideals of American equality and being this bastion and beacon of freedom,
Yeah,
acceptance,
definitely.
opportunity, and a place where people can come. It doesn't matter what you
Right,
look like, what your
right,
situation is.
right,
Like, it's
right.
people like you that continue the good work to help us maintain this fucking idea in the world that it's possible. And
Yeah.
without people like you, we'd be way much worse off.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you for having spaces like this so that we could be open and honest and brave. I appreciate you for having
Oh
spaces
God,
like this.
listen, I am so thankful for the time. I am so
Yeah, I
thankful for
appreciate
the
you.
insight. I am so thankful for just you being willing to sit down and talk to me, Kumari. Thank you
Yeah,
very much.
I'm willing for you. Thank you for having me. I truly appreciate that. I really enjoyed myself.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last, or this is the end of the episode of Mind Your P's and Q's. Kumari Ghafoor-Davis of CACLV, Community Action Committee of the Lehigh Valley. If you're out there and you're listening and you have resources, donate to their programs. They do wonderful work within the community. Kumari, thank you again for your time.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you so
welcome.
much, Lucas.
My pleasure.
Have a great